girlfriend Ivana were there. So I sat next to them, and then he took me down into the rooms, and he just basically, he's a great guy who just thinks out loud, basically. And he just took me into the room, he stopped everybody, he said, guys, I want you to meet this guy from Australia. I'm telling you, he's one of the funniest guys in Australia. He's not that funny in real life, but on the TV, he's great. And he just does think out. I just saw him on an interview on Fox Sports the other day, and they were interviewing him about stuff, and he was just answering away, and in the middle of it, he just stopped, he goes, can I keep going? As if, am I boring anybody? He just says what he thinks, but he's just a great guy, and they're all like that, really, yeah.
And do you think the Socceroos role has kind of changed in Australia over the years? It's such a something we kind of talked about previously, but just the fact that the Socceroos were nowhere in the kind of public imagination in the early to mid 70s, and there were no Doug Uchasenovic, didn't advertise Adidas boots or a breakfast cereal or something that makes you feel like a player cares about you. So I think their role has certainly changed. I mean, today Mark Schwarzer was very guarded about anything that he did because he was worried that we might put a different label on something in the back and it wasn't one of his sponsors. So they're all very media savvy now. But in terms of their role in how they represent the country, I think that they're still very proud to represent the country in the same way as they did in 2006 and possibly the same way that Charlie Yankos did in the 80s or 90s or whenever he played. It's different though, isn't it? I mean, in terms, I guess, of our relationship with the team, that the fact that, I remember the Socceroos losing to the Italian army.
I remember that, yes.
And 15,000 people turned up to see the Italian army play. Yeah. But
well, I'm sure we had lots of this. Bumping into John at the end of an Aberdeen game, or you were just seeing everything, and it rained a lot more then. There was no drought, so there was a lot of drizzle at Olympic Park, and you just see Hibs or people like that play here, and playing against Australia. So it did feel very different. But Patrick, do you feel? How do you feel now that you've been through the ride? Do you feel a lot better now that Australia, the sleeping giant has awoken, or do you feel any different, or does it feel hollow? How do you feel about the emergence of the game?
Well, I think because when I was a kid, I didn't need everyone else to be interested in it. It was always slightly incidental, but it is kind of comforting to think that people don't hate the sport that I love quite as much as they did back in the old days, and that they do, I guess, have some appreciation or whatever of the tension associated with a 0-0 draw, and that it's for every second of a 0-0 draw, it might be about to be not a 0-0 draw, or at least that's what we keep telling ourselves. So, but yeah, it is weird, kind of sharing a sport with a lot of other people, and. I feel a great affection for the old days at Olympic Park that you're talking about. I mean, I went to a National Soccer League game once where the Age soccer reporter Laurie Schwab was there, and he proudly announced that he counted the crowd at a certain point. And he said it was definitely 312. and that sort of thing, it's like that's fantastic, and that's gone. I mean, hopefully forever. But
isn't it strange? I took my dad to my dad and I went to a Melbourne Victory Adelaide United semi-final about 3 years ago. When did Melbourne win 6-0?
Yeah, 2006 was it?
Yeah,
2007.
We walked to the ground from my house. I live in South Palm, so it was a lovely walk. And there would have been 50,000 people there that day, I think. Okay. And my dad was almost in tears, thinking, I never would have thought in my lifetime that I would see this many people coming to a local game that were, apart from the odd Greek, that were non sort of ethnic, non-partisan. And it was great. It was a great atmosphere. It was a great game. I think Melbourne stole it at the end by 2 goals, but it it wasn't funny because it was wonderful to see that many people, but at the same time I remember leaning across to my dad because everyone was going nuts at the game, and I leaned across to him and I said, almost conspiratorial, I mean, I didn't want other people to hear, I said, you know what, is the standard of the game that much better than the early 70s? And he looked across and he said, no. So you kind of forget that even though sometimes there were 312 people, sometimes there were 15,000 people as well with those. But there were some quite amazing players, some Scottish players that came out that were just genuinely great players, some Croatian players that were just genuinely great, some really wonderful Italian players. So sure, the perception of the game may have changed, but you just wondered whether are they playing all that much better? Even the Australian side, I know that they, you know, back in the 80s there was a lot of long ball and a lot of bit of this and that, the other, but I don't know whether it's changed all that much, whether it's got all that better.
No, but well, I suppose maybe I feel like the stories aren't quite as good now as they were. I mean, I remember going to another game the same year that I was describing in the National Soccer League, and Željko Kalac was the goalkeeper for the visiting team, and the home team couldn't afford security or ball boys. I'm not sure whether ball boys get paid. So Željko had to climb into the crowd at Olympic Park, like past the running track, like over the fence to pick up the ball, and then like skating across the running track. I
remember those days when the goalkeeper used to have a go across. You can't imagine Željko Kalac doing that. I heard today that Scott McDonald was a ball boy at the game at the Anzac, the game against Iran. At the MCG. Right, and he still remembers Harry Kewell going up to him saying, throw the ball back slowly.
Right.
Yeah, just don't give it up as quickly. We're probably speaking maybe too much about football. If there's probably some non-football people here. I just wanted to ask about the idea of writing a book in the way that you did. Now, it is about football, but it's certainly autobiographical. Did you treat it, I don't know how you treat books, but did you treat it as an autobiography, or did you just want to write about football and growing up?
I guess I wanted it to be...
Does that make sense? Yeah.
I guess I wanted it to be the memoir of a soccer fan, but there was no way that I would have been able to stay awake or have any sense of possible readers staying awake if I hadn't kind of broadened it out a little bit into issues of... I don't want to over-intellectualise it, but issues of identity and...
give it context.
Yeah, that's right. And I did grow up in country Victoria in the 1970s, and there was a certain flavour to that as well. So I did want to have occasional references to the fact that for instance, there was a music show on country Victorian television called, I think it was called Breezin'.
Was it called Redfield?
Breezin'?
I remember.
It was
hosted
by Glenn Ridge.
No.
It was hosted by Glenn Ridge with a moustache, and he would play songs by the Eagles and the Doobie Brothers and bands who sounded like the Eagles and the Doobie Brothers, and that was only on country Victorian television as far as I know. So just those sorts of things, irrelevant though they were to Arsenal's FA Cup campaign, that was running simultaneous to Glenn Ridge's burgeoning TV career. So I was.
But did you have any? Were you as interested? I won't say obsessed, but when you got into music, were you just as interested and wanted to get to the bottom of things as you were with football? When something new came along and you said, "Oh my God, this is a completely new world for me," did the same thing click in your head?
I think it took me a while to find my equivalent to soccer in the music world, and although John's record collection did feature Chicago 16, and I think perhaps a couple of ELO albums, or maybe I introduced them myself. It wasn't until I was 14 that I discovered, when I was in England, watching Top of the Pops with 60 minutes of Ring My Bell by whoever originally sang Ring My Bell, and that sort of thing. And the final song was the number one song, and that was by a band called Tuboyami.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw someone as pale and as peculiar looking as he was, and as I recognised, it was like looking in a mirror. Yeah. I thought, this is my kind of music. And
I saw him in Melbourne. Did you see him when he came to Melbourne?